Okay. You're wearing the official shirt too. Let's see. Does it matter the direction? Let's see how Do you sing Jairada Madhava?
Yes.
Okay. Let's get this out. This is not very big table here. Let's see. How do you like Krishna House in Gainesville? Yeah? Is it as good as Vancouver?
Oh, it's better.
Good. You said the right thing. There you go. Okay, so I have my notes for this class in this computer, which I haven't looked at in a long time. So maybe you can tell me. Well, maybe I should find it for just a second. Maybe someone else can sing Jairada Madhava while I'm getting this together. Haribo, way in the corner there. Haribo, these are the secret members. Jaya Govinda. Nantalila Pravishtom Vishnupad Paramahansa Parivrajakachaja Astritara Satyashishimad Shilabai Chadna Ravinda Bhaktivedanta Goswami Maharaj Prabhupada Ki Jai. Anantalila Pravishtom Vishnupad Paramahansa Parivrajakachaja Astritara Satyashishimad Shila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Goswami Maharaj Prabhupada Ki Jai. Anantakoti Vaishnavinda Ki Jai. Namacharya Shila Haryas Thakur Ki Jai. Pramsakaha Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasari Gaura Bhaktivinoda Ki Jai. Shishi Radha Krishna Gopinath Shamakunda Radha Kunda Giri Govardhana Ki Jai. Shri Vrindavan Mathur Dhama Ki Jai. Navadip Mayapur Dhama Ki Jai. Shri Tulsi Devi Bhakti Devi Ki Jai. Krishna House Ki Jai. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. Glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to Shri Guru and Shri Guranga. All glories to Srila Prabhupada. I like this temple. All the women are in the front. It's very nice. Except we have a few outliers who don't mind. So, okay, so Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Narayanam Namaskritya Naram Chaiva Narottamam Devim Saraswatim Vyasam Tato Jayam Udiraye Nasta Praeshu Abhajeshu Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya Bhagavati Uttama Shloke Bhakti Bhavati Naistiki Narayanam Namaskritya Naram Chaiva Narottamam Devim Saraswatim Vyasam Tato Jayam Udiraye. Reading from Srimad Bhagavatam. Do you read the English? Okay. So reading from Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 3, Chapter 2, text number 25 through 34. And so the way I understand this is, well, I chose the one I want to read the purport to. Is that all right? 27. So someone reads 25.
So why don't we go around just do the translation?
Okay, great.
And then
Okay.
you focus on the main words.
Okay. Good. Good. So someone wants to read 25?
Yeah, we just normally we just pass the mic around.
Good.
Verse 25. Actually, before that, if you don't mind.
Sure.
Like to welcome Mother Rukmini. Hi, all. She's a wonderful. We all love her. I love her. She has been so caring and nurturing to so many devotees. So we're very happy.
Actually, the best thing I did in the last year was I introduced Surya Radhika and Shruti Sagar. So, what's that?
Last year we started speaking 1st of September.
This day.
Yes.
Wow. I got a message from her mom. Do you know anybody? I said, well, I do know this one guy. So I'm happy for you. They're getting married in November. Yeah. Shruti Sagar searched for a long time, but nobody was good enough. So okay. Enough of this.
All right, let's start the verses then. The personality of Godhead, Lord Shri Krishna, being prayed to by Brahma to bring welfare to the earth, was begotten by Vasudeva in the womb of his wife Devaki, in the prison of the king of Bhoja.
Thereafter, his father, being afraid of Kamsa, brought him to the cow pastures of Maharaj Nanda, and there he lived for 11 years, like a covered flame, with his elder brother Baladev.
In his childhood, the Almighty Lord was surrounded by cowherd boys and calves, and thus he traveled on the shore of the Yamuna River, through gardens densely covered with trees and filled with vibrations of chirping birds.
But when the Lord displayed his activities just suitable for childhood, he was visible only to the residents of Vrindavana. Sometimes he would cry and sometimes laugh, just like a child, and while so doing, he'd appear like a lion cub.
While herding the very beautiful bulls, the Lord, who was the reservoir of opulence and fortune, used to blow his flute, and thus he enlivened his faithful followers, the cowherd boys.
The great wizards who were able to assume any form were engaged by the king of Bhoja, Kamsa, to kill Krishna, but in the course of his pastimes, the Lord killed them as easily as a child breaks dolls.
The inhabitants of Vrindavan were perplexed by great difficulties because a certain portion of the Yamuna was poisoned by the chief of the reptiles, Kalya. The Lord chastised the snake king within the water and drove him away, and after coming out of the river, he caused the cows to drink the water and proved that the water was again in its natural state.
Does a king like Krishna desire to utilize the opulent financial strength of Maharaj Nanda for worship of the cows? And also he wanted to give a lesson to Indra, the king of heaven. Thus he advised his father to perform worship of the pasturing land and the cows with the help of learned Brahmana.
O sober Vidura, King Indra, his honor having been insulted, poured water incessantly on Vrindavana, and thus the inhabitants of Braja, the land of cows, were greatly distressed, but the compassionate Lord Krishna saved them from danger with his pastime umbrella, the Govardhana hill.
In the third season of the year, the Lord enjoyed as the central beauty of the assembly of women by attracting them as his pleasing songs in an autumn night brightened by moonshine.
Hare Krishna. So then we can go back and chant the Sanskrit of verse text number 27. Is that all right?
Yeah. Get it up on the screen.
Okay. Okay. So how do we
So you can chant.
okay. Harito Vatsaparvatsams Charayan Vyaharad Vibhu Yamuno Pavane Kujad Dvija Sankulitang Kripe Harito Vatsaparvatsams Charayan Vyaharad Vibhu Yamuno Pavane Kujat Dvija Sankulitang Gripe. Please chant. Sankulitam Kripe.
Parito vatsape vatsam.
Parito vatsape vatsam.
Sarayantya haradivu.
Sarayantya haradivu.
Yamuno pavane puja.
Yamuno pavane puja.
Sankulitam Kripe.
Sankulitam Kripe.
Anyone else? Okay. Paritaha, surrounded by, Vatsapai, cowherd boys, Vatsan, calves, Charayan, herding, tending, Vyaharat, enjoyed by traveling, Vibhu, the Almighty, Yamuna, the Yamuna River, Upavane, gardens on the shore, Kujat, vibrated by the voice, Dvija, the twice-born birds, Sankulita, deeply, densely situated, Angripe. So twice-born birds, do you get why birds are twice-born? Anybody want to venture a guess? So birds, first they're born in an egg, right? And then they come out of the egg and are born again. So they're called twice-born like Brahmins, but they're unlike Brahmins in other ways. Right? Okay, translation. In his childhood, the Almighty Lord was surrounded by cowherd boys and calves, and thus he traveled on the shore of the Yamuna River through gardens densely covered with trees and filled with vibrations of chirping birds. Please repeat. In his childhood, surrounded by cowherd boys and calves, and thus he traveled on the shore of the Yamuna River through gardens densely covered with trees and filled with chirping birds. Purport. Now, does someone read? Someone want to read the first paragraph?
Nanda Maharaja was landholder of King Kamsa, but because by caste he was a Vaishya, a member of the mercantile and agricultural community, he maintained thousands of cows. It is the duty of the Vaishyas to give protection to the cows, just as the Kshatriyas are to give protection to the human beings. Because the Lord was a child, he was put in charge of the calves with his cowherd boyfriends. These cowherd boys were great rishis and yogis in their previous births, and after many such pious births, they gained the association of the Lord and could play with him on equal terms. Such cowherd boys never cared to know who Krishna was, but they played with him as a most intimate and lovable friend. They were so fond of the Lord that at night they would only think of the next morning when they would be able to meet the Lord and go together to the forest for cow herding.
The forests on the shore of the Yamuna are all beautiful gardens, full of trees of mango, jackfruit, apples, guava, oranges, grapes, berries, palm fruit, and so many other plants and fragrant flowers. And because the forest was on the bank of the Yamuna, naturally there were ducks, cranes, and peacocks on the branches of the trees. All these trees and birds and beasts were pious living entities born in the transcendental abode of Vrindavan, just to give pleasure to the Lord and his eternal associates, the cowherd boys.
While playing with a small child with his associates, the Lord killed many demons, including Agasura, Bakasura, Pralambasura, and Gardhabasura. Although he appeared at Vrindavan just as a boy, he was actually like the covered flames of a fire. As a small particle of fire can kindle a great fire with fuel, so the Lord killed all these great demons, beginning from his babyhood in the house of Nanda Maharaj. The land of Vrindavan, the Lord's childhood playground, still remains today, and anyone who visits these places enjoys the same transcendental bliss, although the Lord is not physically visible to our imperfect eyes. Lord Chaitanya recommended this land of the Lord as identical with the Lord and therefore worshipable by the devotees. This instruction is taken up especially by the followers of Lord Chaitanya, known as the Gaudiya Vaishnavas. And because the land is identical with the Lord, devotees like Uddhava and Vidura visited these places 5,000 years ago in order to have direct contact with the Lord, visible or not visible. Thousands of devotees of the Lord are still wandering in these sacred places of Vrindavan, and all of them are preparing themselves to go back home, back to Godhead.
Hare Krishna. Om Ajnana-timirandasya Gyananjana Salakaya Chaksun Militam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namah Shri Chaitanya Manobhistam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamhiyam Tadati Sapadantikam Namah Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prestaya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti Vedanta Swami Niti Namane Namaste Saraswate Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Sanyavadi Paschatya Deshatarine Vanchakapataru Vyascha Kripa Sindhu Vayevacha Patitanam Bhavanebhyo Vaishnavi Namo Namaha Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasadi Gaura Bhaktavinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. In these verses, Lord Krishna's very, very dear friend Uddhava is speaking to Vidura, who is also another great intimate associate of Lord Krishna. And Uddhava is speaking. He's asked by Vidura indirectly about the disappearance of Lord Krishna, but he didn't talk about that. He began reciting the Lord's pastimes during his appearance, not his painful disappearance. So it's interesting, on our Vaishnava calendar, we have the disappearance day of appearance day and disappearance day of different great saints. But we don't have the disappearance day of Lord Krishna. We don't have a disappearance day of Radharani. Yeah. We don't have a disappearance day of Lord Chaitanya. Yeah. So too painful, right? We don't want to hear those painful pastimes. So first, Uddhava is reciting some amazing pastimes, Krishna appearing in the prison of Kamsa. The Lord enjoyed being carried by, he was having a good time, right? He was being carried by his father Vasudeva to cross the Yamuna to Vrindavan. And although he had no personal fear of Kamsa, he was only feeling joy. But Vasudeva was feeling great. Vasudeva and Devaki were feeling great fear. First he appeared as a four-armed Vishnu in the prison of Kamsa, and Devaki saying, no, please just turn yourself into a normal-looking baby because we're so afraid of Kamsa. So he changed into a normal-looking baby, a little bluish. Yeah. But and then he enjoyed being carried by his father, who was covered with fear, filled with fear, but the Yamuna parted and gave him way. And then there's a nice pastime where she wanted to play with him, so she caused some nice waves, and Vasudeva was, afraid that he was going to fall. So yeah, beautiful. So he wasn't feeling fear of Kamsa, only joy. Then he stayed in Vrindavan for 11 years as a child in the home of Nanda Maharaj, like a covered flame, with his brother Baladev, Krishna's first expansion. So then, and the purport to, let me see, I have it marked, the purport to verse 28. Maybe I'll just mention it. The Lord looked at the demons like a cub of a lion, struck by wonder. And he was like the cub of a lion. And then the cowherd boys would go home each day and tell their parents how Krishna did something wonderful. You won't believe the amazing thing that Krishna did today. And then at night they would just dream of the next day, spending another day playing with Krishna. So yeah, it's nice. It's interesting the word wizards is used. I don't think I ever saw that before. The Lord in his childhood killing shape-shifting wizards like a child breaks dolls or toy animals during play. And then the chapter ends with Uddhava mentioning Lord Krishna's pastime, attracting the gopis with his flute on an autumn night brightened by the moonlight. So these are very, if you read through these verses, I think you can feel the emotion of Uddhava. You know, he's just witnessed the disappearance of his dearmost friend. Lord Krishna gave him instructions to go to Badarik Ashram in the Himalayas to tell the devotees there, about that the Lord had left this world. And so I love the combination of these two personalities when, so a little later, Uddhava sends Vidura to speak with Maitreya because he considered him senior. He was more senior. And also Uddhava was overwhelmed with feelings of separation. So later on in the third canto, we see the instructions of Maitreya to Vidura. But here Uddhava is overwhelmed with emotion, sense of wonder at Krishna's extraordinary greatness as the Supreme Personality of Godhead, playing like a human child, covering his power, but just showing his beauty, his play, and his love for his devotees. So our task as devotees, following the mood of a great devotee like Uddhava and Vidura in this chapter, is to be similarly overwhelmed with spiritual emotion. In the purport to verse 26, it says, there's a transcendental relationship that Krishna enjoys more when someone takes him as a subordinate son who needs the protection of a father than he does when someone accepts him as the Supreme Lord. Let me just read that. You can catch it. I took the marker out. So now I'm lost. What page? What chapter? Can you find it? Yeah, so like there's one great devotee, Bilva Mangala Thakur, and he wrote a book called Krishna Karnamrita, which is one of Lord Chaitanya's most favorite books. And in that book, he mentions in one verse that, thanks, let me just finish this point. So he mentions in one verse that the yogis are meditating on the form of Vishnu in their hearts. But Krishna, as Vishnu, he doesn't talk to them. He's too busy. What's he busy doing? He's too busy talking to the cows in Vrindavan. And he's asking them, what's he asking them? You heard this before? What's he asking them? Do you miss your mother? Do you need a little scratch behind your ear? You know, so that's what he's too busy to talk to the yogi. It's so sweet. So in this verse, let's see, 26. I wanted to read a bit of the purport here. Yeah. He lived there for 11 years and completed all his fascinating pastimes of childhood, boyhood, and adolescence with his elder brother, Lord Baladev, his first expansion. Vasudev's thought of protecting Krishna from the wrath of Kamsa is part of a transcendental relationship. The Lord enjoys more when someone takes him as his subordinate son who needs the protection of a father than he does when someone accepts him as the Supreme Lord. He is the father of everyone and he protects everyone. But when his devotee takes it for granted that the Lord is to be protected by the devotee's care, it is a transcendental joy for the Lord. Thus, when Vasudeva, out of fear of Kamsa, carried him to Vrindavan, the Lord enjoyed it. Otherwise, he had no fear from Kamsa or anyone else. So Srila Prabhupada coined this term, Krishna consciousness, to be conscious of Krishna, how to be in loving, intense, ecstatic relationship with Krishna, or what's called bhakti rasa. So he took that phrase, Krishna consciousness, from a verse from Rupa Goswami's anthology of his favorite. Rupa Goswami's favorite verse book is called Padyavali. Have you seen it before? Anyone seen it before? It's his favorite verse book where he jots down all his favorite verses of different great devotees, and some of the verses are unknown, anonymous, but it's his favorite verse book. So this is a verse from that verse book. It's quoted from the Padyavali. Krishna Bhakti Rasa Bhavitam Mati Kriyatam Yadi Kuto Kilabhyate Tatralalyam Apimulyam Ekalam Janmakoti Sukritaya Nalabhyate. And the verse says, pure devotional service in Krishna consciousness cannot be had even by pious activity in hundreds and thousands of lives. It can only be attained by paying one price, that is, intense greed to obtain it. If it is available somewhere, one must purchase it without delay. It's a beautiful verse, isn't it? So it's talking about greed, but in a good way. We always think we shouldn't be greedy, but there's some things we should be greedy about. So we shouldn't be lackadaisical in executing Krishna consciousness. We should be greedy to attain this sweetness of bhakti rasa. And the point being made here in this verse that it doesn't come by pious activities. What are pious activities? Like you can plant trees, you can dig wells, you can give water to pilgrims, you can do so many pious things, but it can't be had in any of those ways. It can be had as a gift from a devotee of the Lord. And once we're also fortunate, we're coming in the line of Srila Prabhupada, this Gaudiya Sampradaya. We're being gifted with this precious gift, right? But we also have to do our part. We can't be lackadaisical about it. And we have to develop this greed. And that's Krishna consciousness is that greed for the right thing. So, So the verse says, the sweet taste of bhakti rasa can't be gotten by performing good works, only by greed, intense greed to have it. Greed, or we could say intense thirst to have it. Imagine if you're really thirsty in a desert in the material world, then maybe a little glass of water, or maybe a couple of glasses of water are just not going to do the trick. You are really, really thirsty and famished, looking for water in the desert. In the same way, if we're conscious, we should come to the point of being famished and realize that there is not much enjoyment in this material world. There is a little bit, but it's kind of not enough, I'll tell you the story that, once Srila Prabhupada was at New Vrindavan, and he was speaking outside in the grass, lovely farmy area, sitting in the grass. So he was giving his talk outside, not in the temple room. And there were some little baby kittens that were wrestling in front of him, just like wrestling with each other, kind of like playing around. And Prabhupada was watching them. And he said something amazing. He said, you see, there is happiness in this material world. It's like something he never says, right? You know, what? He says, you see, there is happiness in this material world. But then he began to explain that it's just not enough to satisfy this famished heart of ours. You know, so when you hear devotees say there's no happiness in this material world, you can reflect that, you know, sometimes we think, well, that's not true, you know, but reflect on, was it really enough? Is it really enough to fill up my famished heart? Like, yeah, there's beautiful sunsets, and there's beautiful beaches, and there's friendship, and there's love, and there's, you know, I know Raghunath likes to quote, Raghunath from Wisdom of the Sages likes to quote this Franciscan monk, Richard Rohr, who says that we all come into this world with a God-sized hole in our hearts. And we try to fill it up with liquor, food, what's in the fridge, maybe shopping, maybe, you know, maybe boyfriends, maybe girlfriends, maybe football games. Wow. But then when it's over, especially when they lose. My son Gauravani was raised in Gurukul, and he was never taught any competitive sports. And then when we moved to Denver, when Anutama Prabhu's right there, we got married, all the men in that temple were really into football, and I think the Denver Broncos were a big deal at that time. Are they still? I don't know. They were, maybe they still are. They had this champion, what was his name? Anyway, whoever the champion of the champion quarterback, right? He met one of the devotees who was distributing books on the street. What was his name?
John Elway.
John Elway. Anybody ever heard of him? Yeah. Anyway, probably he's probably dead and gone by now. He's well, at this point, he probably owns a car dealership. But yes, virtually he's dead. Anyway, he met this book distributor on the street, and she didn't know who he was. Like, everybody in Denver knew who he was. Like, he's on every billboard or whatever. And he's like so shocked at this. What? You mean you don't know who I am? No.
She approached him. He said, "You know who I am?" I said, "No, but this is a really beautiful."
So anyway, yeah, even John Elway loses it at some point, you know. I mean, you could probably talk to him today and find out how he's suffering, you know. Is his liver shot from all the drinking, or who knows what it is? All the women, all the who knows what, all the cars, all the perks he got as the big, you know, most famous man in Denver, Colorado. But at this point, he's probably could tell you that it wasn't enough, right? So yeah, a few drops of water in the desert are not enough to satisfy our famished thirst. And this taste of transcendental relationship, does that sound depressing? Do you think I'm being depressing? I mean, do you think that's like masochism and like devotee speak, that there's no suffering in this? I mean, there's no happiness in this material.
Be realistic.
It's a little bit realistic, yeah? Like, you know, we don't want to be blind optimists, and we don't want to be pessimists. But I'll tell you the secret here, following the line of Srila Prabhupada. We should be, I would say, a little pessimistic materially and quite optimistic spiritually. So if you can see the difference there, I think that's an important perspective. You know, there is great hope spiritually, and in this world, you know, there's always some kind of a dead end, right? So, okay, so this transcendental relationship that we see in this chapter, this intense discussion between Uddhava and Vidura, really they're experiencing this pain of separation from Lord Krishna after his disappearance. And this is what we're meant to learn, meant to churn, following this mood of Lord Chaitanya, as he's churning the emotions of Srimati Radharani. Were all of you, many of you at the Alachua temple yesterday? The beautiful festival, huh? So beautiful. So this mood of separation, every time Krishna goes out of Radharani's sight, she's in separation. Like there's one story that there was a bee buzzing around her face and bothering her, and bees are called madhu because they make honey, right? So Madhu Mangal, Krishna asked Madhu Mangal to chase this bee away. Madhu Mangal is Krishna's funny comedian kind of, yeah, he eats a lot. He has a big belly. He's always thinking of food at every minute of the day. As a matter of fact, he describes bhakti rasa all in terms of food. But anyway, so Krishna asked him to scare that bee away. So he scared the bee away, and then he came back very proudly boasting that I have scared Madhu away. And Radharani heard that, and she's right next to Krishna. This is called, I forget the name of, anybody know the name of that kind of separation? No, it's a type of separation when Krishna's right next to her, but she thinks he's gone. So she starts feeling these feelings of separation that Madhu is gone. Madhu Sudana, Krishna, name for Krishna, he's gone. So, yeah. So, yeah. So the seventh verse of Lord Chaitanya's Sikshastakam, which I recommend you all learn, very important. These are among the only verses that Lord Chaitanya wrote. And he says in the seventh verse, "O Govinda, feeling your separation, I'm considering a moment." He's speaking in the voice of Radharani. Lord Chaitanya speaking in the voice of Radharani. Feeling your separation, I'm considering a moment to be like a millennium. I'm burning in a slow fire. In one of the verses in Chaitanya Charitamrita says, my mind is being corroded by feelings of separation. I'm burning in a slow fire, feeling the world to be vacant, so vacant in your absence. So I feel like the grief that we feel in this world. Remember, I've told Sharmila before that there's this phrase that joy is the gift of love. When we love someone, we feel joy. But then when we feel separated, when that person passes away, then that grief we feel is the price of love. So joy is the gift of love. Separation is the price of love. So yeah. So the grief we feel in this world, it's a reflection of the intense grief of separation felt by Lord Chaitanya and the greatest devotees of Krishna. So then in the next verse, the last verse of the Sikshastakam, again in the voice of Srimati Radharani, Lord Chaitanya says, I know no one but Krishna as my Lord. Even if he handles me roughly by his embrace or makes me brokenhearted by not being appearing or being present before me, he is completely free to do anything, everything. After all, he is a debauchee. Anybody know what a debauchee is? Somebody want to mention? What is a debauchee anyway?
Who said it's someone, or maybe it was someone who like goes from girl to girl.
Yeah. There's an archaic word in English, libertine. Do you ever remember that word from English literature? He's got a lot of girlfriends. What? Oh, okay. Debauchee. Can you read that? Can you see it?
Person given to excess indulgence and sensual pleasures.
Right. So you don't want to meet a guy like that on the campus of the University of Florida, but it's quite amazing that the Supreme Personality of Godhead has that quality. Or it's not a fault, it's a quality. Because, so many people are offering him their love. So many gopis in Vrindavan and devotees all over the world. Sometimes it's said that a devotee, but the verse in Bhagavad Gita that says that Ekeha Kuru Nandana, that the devotee must be single-pointed determination, ekha, single-pointed. But Krishna is not like that. He is bahusaka. His intelligence is many-branched because there are so many devotees offering him love from so many different directions. So sometimes he has to, hang out with Chandravali and Saibya and Padma and those guys for a little while. Then he goes back. But that just increases Radharani's love for him. So he's a devotee. But it's all spiritual. It's not material. Yeah. So please understand, it's not material. So anyway, so I think the question we have to ask ourselves is, am I feeling this kind of ardent thirst, or greed, as it's being called in this important verse, in this churning of love, in this conversation between two great devotees and these great lovers of Krishna? And if I'm not feeling that, why not? And what am I going to do about it? Any ideas? I don't know if I have in my notes here. Yeah, I just want to throw this in from Lord Jesus Christ before I ask the question. So Lord Jesus Christ, I love this quote from the Bible where he says, be hot or be cold, but if you are lukewarm, I spit you out. So this is our dilemma. I mean, I speak for myself. You can ask my husband. I'm pretty lukewarm a lot of the time. And so what are we going to do about this? You had your hand up, Prabhu. Yeah.
Could you please repeat the question?
Yeah, the problem is that I'm not feeling this intense emotional love, greed to attain Krishna consciousness, this bhakti rasa. I'm pretty much la-di-da, just checking out whatever there is in Gainesville, and what am I going to do about that consciousness?
Well, I can think of two reasons. One is,
can you put the mic up so we can hear?
Okay, yeah. Two reasons I can think of. One is being very not fully convinced that the material world truly just doesn't go anywhere that's going to be satisfying, like for the long term, like without being completely convinced of that. And then two, just being overwhelmed by distractions and to such a point that it's difficult to focus on keep our priorities straight.
Yeah, good answers. You have your hand up? Yeah.
Say, in those moments that it happens,
Put the mic up so we can
in those moments that it does happen, because you're all human and it happens.
You mean like a good emotional experience, transcendental?
Yeah, dive in. For me,
Oh.
like when I'm out and about and I start getting carried away or feeling lukewarm, I dive into bhakti. I ask myself, am I in association? Am I doing less? And just diving back in. And for me, all over my house, I have pictures of Krishna and things because I need prompts. I need prompting to remember Krishna all over the place, and dive back in because it can get strong in the other way.
I think you have your hand up too, so I have to, your point. Okay.
I actually one thought that I had was sometimes the idea of allowing myself to experience Krishna comes with allowing myself to experience the extreme guilt about how I've been avoiding Krishna. And sometimes that is too painful for me to deal with at the time, or I just don't want to cry during japa today, or something like that. And so I kind of allow myself to not go there. And then another thought is sometimes I feel like those intense emotions I'm not going to be able to sustain them. So why even pretend like I feel them? Even though I there's an inclination to feel them, I'm like, this is not, whatever, this isn't
I mean,
sustainable.
the painful emotions.
Or
too.
like the depth that comes with pain often, but
Yeah.
also bliss. But it's like if I access it now, I won't be able to sustain it. I'm not going to be able to access it in 5 minutes. So why even go there?
That's a really interesting, important point, that even the bliss is like, I'm afraid of it. It's too deep. I mean, look at the pain of Radharani. You know, her mind is being corroded. Am I ready to have my mind corroded? You know, it's intense. But you said something interesting too that I want to mention. So you use the word guilt. And I think the word guilt has kind of a bad rap in our modern world. You know, shame and guilt. It's kind of like we have to get rid of those things. But there is something called remorse, which I think is an important devotional quality when we're chanting. It's a little different from, it's contrition, remorse, that Krishna, I left you. I just turned my back on you. Oh, that reminds me of this really beautiful story I have to share. So we're staying at the house of a nice devotee named Nanda over in Alachua. She has this beautiful Krishna that she worships on her altar. She found him in Navadvip in a little kind of very junky store that had all kinds of, like a little Indian store, but full of bunch of junk. And she spotted him, and he was facing the back corner. He was facing into the corner. And she said, asked the shopkeeper, who's that? And the shopkeeper turned him around, and she had this is real bhakti rasa. I think she said it never happened to her again, but this is real bhakti rasa. So she heard this voice in her heart. Get this. This is so good. She heard this voice in her heart saying, I am the personification of the person whose name you are chanting. Wow. Isn't that beautiful? Yeah, this Krishna, she heard this voice, this really beautiful Krishna who had his facing the back so nobody else could see him, maybe. Or maybe he was waiting for her. So the shopkeeper turned him around, and she immediately heard this message. I am the personification of the person whose name you are chanting. Isn't that so wow? Yeah. Okay, so back to the question. Other people had some thoughts. What are we going to do about this problem? Yes.
In my humble opinion, if we feel like we don't have bhakti ras, I think the best thing we can do is to find someone who has it, like our Divine Grace, His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami, and to try and serve them, but really serve them. And I think if you want to serve someone, you have to find out what their heart's desire is. And I think, I mean, correct me if I'm wrong, you know Prabhupada better than I do, but I think that his heart's desire is just that as many people as possible can connect with Krishna. So there's so much work left to be done. There's so much, preaching that we can do. And I think that if we do that service for Prabhupada, then we might get flooded with bhakti ras.
Beautiful. Great answers. You guys are so deep, you know. Thank you. That was really beautiful. So sometimes it's said that this bhakti rasa or Krishna consciousness is caught more than it's taught. Did you ever hear that before? It's caught more than it's taught. So it's a contagious disease in a good way. Like, you know, remember COVID? It was very contagious and we all had to stay in lockdown, right? So this is a contagious disease in a good way. So find those infected people who you can catch it from. And, you know, like Bhagavad Gita says, how does he sit? Arjun's asking, how does he sit? How does he act? You know, so find those people who you can catch that contagious disease from. Any other thoughts on this question? Yes.
You were speaking last night a little bit about getting curious. And I think that's we spoke a little bit about getting curious. and really going within to ask questions of ourselves of what is blocking me, what am I sitting with right now, where, and then in tune with what Prabhu said over here, and then seeking help and advice from other devotees, but really getting curious about what we're sitting with and what those emotions are, to be able to then address maybe what the prescription is, which, you know.
Yeah. Being curious in prayer. Somebody said in a class yesterday morning in Alachua that on Radhastami, we should be praying to Radharani, whatever blocks, whatever obstacles you see in my heart, please remove them. So that's a prayer, not just for Radhastami, we can pray it every day. You can pray it to Lord Nityananda, to Prabhupada, to whoever, one of these personalities who inspires you. And be curious. Yeah, what's holding me back? That's a curiosity. Let me see, because sometimes everybody else sees, but I don't see, right? You have that experience. Everybody in the Krishna house knows what, how you're blowing it, but I don't see it, so I want to know, right? Anybody else have thoughts on this important question? Yes. Wait, you already had a thought, right?
I had a question, but I didn't get
Okay, well, okay, you want to give your thought on that?
Yeah, and back onto the same point that I was talking about before, about being afraid to feel or not sustaining that. The way that I've come to honor that within myself is to allow myself to feel those deep emotions when they come, and not be upset with myself when they're not there, but and not disregard them when they start to arise in my heart, but to really lean into them, and honor them while they're present.
That's very beautiful. Thank you so much. Can I have a few more minutes here? Yeah. Anybody else have thoughts on that? Yes, you have your hand up.
Right?
What was that?
Detachment.
What was that? Detachment.
Yeah, and I want to know about how to know our instinct call, or that is always inside, and they know the reality, and how to make it more good on the daily basis.
So you're saying, if I can interpret, you're saying to be detached from distractions.
No, from happiness and sorrow that are always there in the material.
Always there, yeah. 1 minute happy, 1 minute distressed.
Yeah.
So some detachment, and then being able to feel the instinct of something.
Yeah.
Something authentic.
Yeah.
Is that
to know the reality, how to build up your instinct so that you can know the reality, and you will be more to the soul and supreme soul, and you will be know what will gonna happen.
Yeah, that's beautiful. So, to me, that's a prayer. Let me, you say it as a prayer. My dear Lord Chaitanya, Lord Nityananda, help me be detached from these being, flung to the left and the right by happiness and sorrow, and please awaken the instinct of the authentic voice, right? The voice, to hear such a voice. Could that ever possibly happen to me? That I would get that message from Krishna? I'm the personification of the person whose name you are chanting. Wow. Could that happen to an ordinary person who walks around Gainesville? It's possible, right? So I have a few more things here, but time's up. Yeah. Okay. So,
We don't have Krishna.
So go till. Anyway, okay, so yeah, I was gonna ask, you ever feel like you're just sleepwalking through your life? That you're just, you're in this mood that, yeah, I've seen it, I've done it, everything's boring. Teenagers always say, it's so boring. My friend Krishna Leela back there, she's got a teenager who's, teenagers are always bored, but it means you're kind of a boring person if you can't discover something, to be inspired about. Anyway, if we're really paying attention, the point is that we will be grateful. And Krishna consciousness is about awakening that gratitude. Robin Wall Kimmerer, any of you ever read Braiding Sweetgrass? Really beautiful book. She says that attention, paying attention, is the doorway to gratitude, the doorway to wonder, the doorway to reciprocity. And Abraham Maslow says, ever hear of him? He says, this is the gift, to have the wonderful capacity to appreciate again and again, freshly and naively, the basic goods of life with awe, pleasure, wonder, and even ecstasy. And Srila Prabhupada says later in this third canto, this is really, I love this quote from Prabhupada. He says, every living entity, especially persons in the human race, must feel grateful for the benedictions offered by the grace of the Supreme Lord. Anyone, therefore, with a simple heart, full of gratefulness, must be Krishna conscious and offer devotional service to the Lord. Then he says, those who get this is really strong language from Prabhupada. You know, sometimes he can be really heavy. So he says, those who are actually thieves and rogues do not recognize or acknowledge the benedictions offered to them by the Supreme Lord and cannot render him devotional service. Ungrateful persons are those who do not understand how much benefit they are deriving by the arrangement of the Lord. They enjoy the sunshine and the moonshine, and they get water free of charge, yet they do not feel grateful, but simply go on enjoying these gifts of the Lord. Therefore, they must be called thieves and rogues. You like Prabhupada when he's heavy? Sometimes, right? Yeah. So in conclusion, here's what Bhaktivinoda Thakur says about Krishna's gratitude when by cultivating sadhana bhakti, which is like practice of bhakti when we're not in the spontaneous loving stage yet. Here's what he says, and we actually, then we actually at some point do attain this greed, the stage of bhava, this bhakti rasa. Here's what he says. He says, by cultivating sadhana bhakti, the devotee attains the stage of bhava and finally prema. When the sweet and majestic Lord, the abode of Lakshmi, opens his storehouse of rasa and says, oh friend, I have been carefully holding this storehouse for you. You alone have rights to it. Rejecting me, you fell under the spell of my energy of illusion, but continually I have shown great regard for you. As you have attained this by your own efforts, I am extremely pleased. Serve my ever fresh, pleasurable form and play with me in the endless ocean of bliss. Do not fear, do not lament, for you have attained an eternal life of bliss. For my sake, you have cut off all chains of material attachment. I will not be able to repay the debt of love you have shown. Be naturally satisfied in your service. So yeah, so we can try to worship this mood of separation of the great devotees who so kindly appear in this chapter, Srimad Bhagavatam, like Uddhava and Vidura, and we can learn to try to reciprocate in relationship with Lord Krishna, in gratefulness, in wonder, in thirst, and eventually in the greed of Krishna Bhakti Rasa. Hare Krishna. So, any questions or reflections? Krishna Lila. This is my friend, the filmmaker Krishna Lila. She's a filmmaker. You have to see her film. She also is a professor, or sort of a professor at University of Florida, teaching filmmaking and academic research. She's teaching academic research, how to be curious. Yeah.
So I'm curious. You mentioned that Krishna invited us to play with him, and also, like, I was wondering about, like, not to become too pessimistic about the material world. Like, some years ago, I did a research about the theology of play. Like, you know, we are all trying to find our role in the divine play of Krishna. And there's a book by a German theologian, Jürgen Moltmann, wrote the theology of play, and he says that a spiritual person is a merry, grave person, meaning that grave because they see that if we are enjoying ourselves, they see that it's going to end. It keeps them level-headed, but it also merry because they see that every suffering has a meaning. Every suffering is a source of some sort of joy. But my question to you is that how to find that sweet spot, that you don't become too pessimistic, that you kind of cripple yourself, but you don't get too optimistic either, that you kind of lose your touch with reality. So how to find, I don't know if you can relate to that statement that the married grave person, and if it resonates.
I think it's beautiful.
And then how to find that spot that keeps us going rather than cripple ourselves in either way.
Yeah, I would reflect back to what I said earlier, that what I understand from Srila Prabhupada is to be a bit pessimistic materially, but understand that there's great hope spiritually. You know, so when I see the beautiful things of this world, you know, I mean, how to be hopeful spiritually is like, this is coming from Krishna, you know, this, you know, like the other day I was chanting and there's this little sparrow just like sitting on the window. And it's like, wow, you know, why is this sparrow sitting up, you know, so this is like joy, you know, so it's coming from Krishna. So, you know, the sunlight, the moonlight, the taste of water. Did you ever hear this? That Prabhupada said that even a drunkard, if he's drinking his liquor and he's thinking that this taste that I'm seeking is Krishna, maybe he went by 22nd Avenue, you know, and he heard that this taste I'm seeking in the liquor is Krishna, that he could become Krishna conscious. So I think that's like when we feel those moments of happiness, like, you know, from your daughter, from your whatever, from your work, from your study, from your art, you're a lover of art, you know. So to realize that this is a gift of Krishna, you know, the genius that, you know, the other day we went to the art museum, the Gainesville University Art Museum, Anutama Prabhu and Krishna Leela and myself, and we saw these, you know, there's genius there. So where is it coming from? You know, what does Krishna say? That he's the ability in man, you know, it's the, you know, he's the light of the sun and the moon, the taste of water. So to see Krishna's hand in the joy and in the pain, to know that, yes, this is meant to wake up, sleepwalking person, you know, this is meant to, otherwise, what are we going to do? We go into our like little, you know, cocoon in this world, and we just would stay here forever, right? I always think of the cowboy movies when, you know, the one guy's down, he's been shot, or he's almost shot, and his friend's like slapping him, wake up, they're coming, you know, gotta get out of here. And like, yeah, so that's like a friendly devotee, right? Like, you know, a friendly devotee that you meet, like, and if everybody was here, what happened? You got a book, or somebody told you about Krishna House, or gave you prasadam, or that friendly devotee, you know, otherwise we'd just be in our little cocoons in the material world forever. Like, yeah, they're suffering, but I can handle it. I'll be here forever. And I got my little everything. No, Krishna, he actually misses us. Think about that. I mean, as kind of useless and fallen as we are, Krishna, you know, did you ever hear that in the Bhagavatam there's some quality in you that's only in you, that Krishna misses? He's got millions and trillions of people who are brilliant and talented and love him in all ways. I mean, Radharani never cooks the same thing twice, right? But still there's some quality in Naveen that he misses when we don't turn to him. So I think that would be the answer, you know. I love that point about the, what is it, suffering and merriment?
Merry grave person.
A merry grave person.
Spiritual person is not merry grave, so like keeps that balance.
It's brilliant. I think it's really brilliant.
She's asking, how do you find that
how do you find that balance? I mean, to me, it's a prayer, you know. Krishna, let me not be sleepwalking through my day. Let me be awake to your presence, to the sense of wonder that you are here, that you are present everywhere, and that, you know, wake me up. Let me be curious as I walk through my day, to notice, have a sense of wonder and know where it's coming from. I think that's the artist and the poet in each of us, right? And to be grateful. That's really the answer, you know. I mean, there's angry poetry, there's angry art, but there's also grateful poetry and grateful art, you know. So to be, what is it? Mary Grave? I love her. You like that? Yeah, you guys like that? Any other questions or comments or reflections or complaints?
Still stuck on, we're all come to this world with a God-sized hole. And that was like, you might know, you might think, but like, that was.
Yeah.
And how do we fill it?
Yeah. So and it can't be filled, frankly, with you have a beautiful son, loving husband. It just can't be filled except by the unlimited Krishna. We can keep trying to dump, you know. I can eat more. I can fill my fridge. I can go shopping in the best shops in Kingsville. It's just not going to do it. Football games, they win, they lose. It just doesn't do it. Oh, I was going to tell you about Gauravani. So when we moved to Denver, he was watching this football game with the other men in Denver, this winning team, the Denver Broncos, and they lost. And so, like, you know, they're all eating popcorn watching the game, you know, all the guys. I couldn't really relate, but anyway, you know, but so then they lost. And so then all the brahmacharis and all the guys, like, oh, well, you know, they go back to their service or whatever they're doing, you know. And Gauravani, little Gauravani, he's like 8 years old. He's like sitting there crying. He's like, because he had never been, this is very important, he had never been exposed to competitive sports. You know, how to play in a team, how to win, how to lose, it's important. He's sitting there crying. And like, Gaura, it's just a game. It's only a game. And he's like, oh. He just had his heart set on the Denver Broncos, but didn't fill up the hole, right? All right, so thank you all so much. It's wonderful to be here with you. All glory to Krishna House. Better than Vancouver. People from Vancouver are flocking to come to Krishna House. Thank you. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Hari Bol. Are you guys from all over the country? Where are you?